Kisah mualaf kali ini datang dari seorang pria yang berasal dari Australia. Beliau seorang petani yang makmur dan berkelimpahan uang. Di dalam hidupnya ia ingin mencari spiritual, itulah yang menjadi tujuannya, karena ia sangat percaya adanya Tuhan. Namun kemana harus mencari? Hingga suatu saat ia menemukan jalan, lewat agama Islamlah semua permasalahan hidup bisa terjawab. Terutama tentang uang, inilah yang dikagumi pria ini, dan akhirnya membuatnya menjadi mualaf. Masya Allah. Bagaimana jalan ceritanya? Kita simak kisah cerita selengkapnya. Assalamualaikum pemirsa yang dirahmati Allah. Kembali lagi ke channel Hidayah Surga, channel yang membahas tentang perkembangan Islam di dunia. Sebelum melanjutkan video ini, silakan tombol subscribe dan tekan tanda loncengnya supaya tidak ketinggalan kisah cerita selanjutnya. Semoga Allah selalu melimpahkan rahmat dan hidayahnya kepada kita semua. Barokallah, amin.
I was born in Adelaide, which is where we are now. My mother is Greek. I'm a first generation Australian pretty much. And my dad is full blood Scottish. And they met in Australia and had me, my brother and my sister. I was luckily raised on a farm, which I'm very thankful for because I wasn't stuck inside of a suburban house. Watching television, I was raised around animals with lots of wide open spaces and always out in the fresh air. But I always had a feeling that I had to, spirituality, as I used to call it, was the most important thing to me. I always kind of knew that this life was almost like an illusion, and not an illusion, but like a testing ground. And I knew not to get lost up in the material aspects of life. I just knew that they weren't really serving me anything, weren't really giving me. So the religion was, I always believed in God, and I always knew that God was without form, I guess. And I knew that idol things like statues and things like that and didn't really have any help or have any power over anything. So I always believed in God, but I never really wanted to look into Islam. It was honestly the last religion that I was interested in looking into, just because of everything that they teach us in the West on the news, especially because of 9/11. So when 9/11 happened, I was around that curious age. I was around 18, 19, and it was just, I thought that Muslims were basically terrorists pretty much, and didn't treat women well and things like that. And Islam was the money system basically, and the use of usury. Because I started looking into where our money comes from, how it gets printed out, and then I read in the Bible also that Jesus was talking about not using usury, and then I realized that the only people that were actually not using usury were the Muslim countries, and then that was many years ago, and I realized, well, there must be something right that they're doing. And then from there, it just kind of snowballed from there, really. Being led to God, there's many, many things over my life that have kind of lessons that have taught me things that have got me to this point, and there will be more to get me further as well. But basically, I started reading the Bible a lot and listening to audiobooks, and I got caught up in quite a lot of new age spiritual stuff years ago in my 20s. And in the new age world, Jesus is propped up as being quite an important person, but not in a Catholic or Christian sense. And so I always thought Jesus was really cool, but I never really thought that he was God. And so I started having debates with Christians, and as you've probably heard yourself, you get a lot of Christians saying, you got to believe in Jesus, got to believe in, just open your heart to Jesus, 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 Jesus. And I thought, well, I'm going to read this thing, you know, look for yourself. So I started reading. I think I started reading it when I was 18. I didn't get the whole way through though. And then I read it again when I was about 25. Still didn't get the whole way through. And then in probably about 5 years ago, I started really chewing into the Bible and like listening to audiobooks in bed, and really getting, you know, wanting to investigate. And then from my own understanding, I kind of couldn't see where they were saying that Jesus was saying that he was God. I was reading this thing myself, and it always seemed like he was separating himself from God. You know, he was asking, you know, God, according to the Christians, God sits on the right hand, Jesus sits on the right hand of God. So how can God sit on the right hand of himself? So right there, that didn't really make sense. And just, you know, I could quote from the Bible, but he was always, you know, saying things like, you know, of myself I can do nothing. It's God does works through me. Lots of statements like that. And so I began trying to debate with Christians using the Bible, because that's really the only way to debate with them. You have to, you know, if you don't know the Bible, you're going to lose that argument. And so once I knew the Bible, then I became more, you know, what I was saying became more relevant to them. And opening up, a few people, not all of them, but a few people started kind of listening, but I still wasn't a part of any religion or part of Islam. Just believed in God, and I believed that Jesus was pointing us to God, as does, you know, as were all the prophets. And then what really led me there, like the final big chunk of the snowball, I guess, was one day I saw on a Facebook video was Christ in Islam by Sheikh Ahmadiyya, is that his name? And I thought, I'm gonna have a look at that. And so I clicked on it, and then I just couldn't believe what he was saying. It was like I was hearing myself argue. Hearing myself, that he was making all the same points that I was making. And then I thought, well, I'm going to look into this Islam thing, but I still wasn't really interested, because I thought that you hear a lot of bad stuff about Islam. You know, you hear, you know, women have to cover their hair, and you know, Christians were telling me, oh, you know, you have to pray 5 times a day, and there's all this pressure. It sounds like there's so much pressure. And then I realized that there isn't really any pressure at all. You know, you don't have to do anything really, except for believe that God is one. I mean, you can do more stuff if you want to get better at it. Yeah, so that was it. And then I started investigating. And then I thought, right, I've got to get a Quran. I've got to read this thing as well, because I read the Bible, I should read the Quran. And then that's how I got in contact with Ahmed. And he came round and gave me a Quran. And then I started going to the mosque and asking them, you know, questions, but I wasn't really interested actually with what Muslims had to say, because I knew that everything comes from the Quran. And that was the problem I found with Christianity, is that like the Bible was saying one thing and Christians were saying another. And so I thought, I'm not going to listen to the Muslims, I'm just going to get my own perspective from the Quran. And so that's what I did. And I understood that I was reading just a translation of the Quran, because I was reading it in English, not Arabic. So I understand, I had to go ask a few people who knew Arabic what exactly was written in certain parts, and that was it. Started meeting up with Ahmed at the beach, asking him hard, tough questions, and then next thing you know, I'm a Muslim. I just started talking to everybody afterwards, and one of the things I found most impressive was afterwards, pretty much as soon as the prayer finished, all these tables came outside and people were putting fruits and vegetables and secondhand clothing and things like that outside, just for people to, anyone who needs it. And I thought that was good, poisoning the river and cutting down forests so you can just plant like one crop, and to feed people and just to make money and things like that. We've got to do things in balance, like the Aboriginals and the Indians were really in balance. And so I started eating organic, like nothing, only eat organic, and mostly vegetarian. And so I found that there's quite a bit in the Quran that supports that supports those values. So I'd like it if Muslims ate organic and were organic halal. That would be taking it even further than what we've already have. We've got a very good system. As Mark Twain said, right? It's not the things you think you know that'll get you in trouble. It's the things you know for sure that just ain't so, right? So if I thought that I knew for sure things about Islam, that there was, men were allowed to hit the women and women were like the slaves of men and all this just nonsense stuff that wasn't true. And so that was what actually got me in trouble. So one message I would like to give to people who is that, there's a lot of there's a lot that we think we know about Islam that just isn't so. And there really isn't any pressure at all. I found, I was worried to go to the mosque. The first time I went to the mosque, I was like, oh no, what if I do something wrong and they attack me or something? And I thought, you know what? If I go there and I accidentally do something wrong without meaning to, I've got the best intentions here. I just want to find out about God. If anybody is rude to me or treats me badly, then that religion is not for me. That's just, that shows those people don't know what they're talking about. And everybody was so understanding and so helpful and so charitable. And so I would say just start investigating it, go to your local mosque and just start asking people questions. It's fine, it's quite unlikely that you're going to offend anybody. Constantly through the Quran, I'm always getting amazed and I have to stop and put it down and just go, oh my God, that is just amazing. I feel like there's just everything in there, everything you need to know almost about life is in there. All the philosophy of life is in there. It's beautiful.
Hidayah surga adalah hadiah ilahi yang mengubah hati kita, mengukir kebaikan dalam tindakan kita, dan memberi kita pandangan akan keindahan yang tak terbayangkan di surganya, kebahagiaan yang abadi. Sekian, terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.